We have the privilege today to welcome Ann Eppinger. Ann is a former board member of Zoe Empowers and volunteers as the Florida Lay Advocate. She speaks to churches and individuals about this impactful ministry. She's a member of St. Luke's United Methodist Church in Orlando. She is active in local and global ministries with an emphasis on children and families. She also serves on the Finance Committee. She's a past board member of the Florida United Methodist Foundation and is the granddaughter of a United Methodist pastor. She graduated from Shepherd College and obtained her MBA from Duke University. She's a former investment banker and is a registered municipal advisor. She and her husband, Scott, live in Orlando and share 5 children and 5 grandchildren. She is passionate about the work of Zoe Empowers, and she has helped us in supporting our second group now of orphans in Zimbabwe. Ann?
Thank you. Good morning. I love games. Who in here likes to play games? Do we have any bridge players, Scrabble players, anybody addicted to Wordle or Connections? I was going to mention my favorite college basketball team, but we went down to a crushing defeat last night, so we will skip that little part of the talk. I'm going to put this handmade soccer ball here. I'm going to come back to it in a few minutes and chat about that soccer ball. Well, about 10 years ago, my church, St. Luke's United Methodist in Orlando, invited me to play a game. I call it the game that changed the way that I viewed missions. They partner with an organization called Think Tank Rethink Poverty, who had developed an experience called the Cost of Poverty Experience. Okay, it only takes about an hour to play the game. It's broken into 4 15-minute sessions. And there's some time afterwards to sit around and discuss what you felt and unpack what you experienced. You only need 8 or 10 folding tables, some folding chairs, and the people who staff the tables are usually people who've completed the game in the past. Not hard to do. I'd love to see this church do it. It's pretty easy to put on. Each participant is given a set of circumstances. For example, a single mom with a little baby. And yes, you have to carry a play baby around with you the whole time you're playing this game, or you have to pay for childcare. You might have a family of 7 with both parents working minimum wage jobs to try to make ends meet. You might find a family of working age folks who happen to be here illegally. You begin to get the picture? For just a few minutes, you take on the circumstances of someone else's life, probably a life that is nothing like yours today. And you go those 4 15-minute sessions and you move around the tables in the room and you try to pay your bills, pay your electric bill, pay your mortgage, pay your rent, you drop your children at school, you buy groceries, you transact life, but with circumstances unlike your own. Well, I have to tell you that life does get in the way. If you're not lucky enough to have a car, you got to sit for a few minutes. There's a little timer that you have to sit a few extra minutes to kind of make you feel like you would have to wait for sporadic or inconvenient routes as you waited for a bus. You go to school to drop off the kids, of course, before you do anything if you have kids, because you don't want the truancy officer to come get you. And there are police in this game. If one of your kids is sick, or if there's a school holiday that doesn't correspond with your work holiday, you have to deal with childcare. If you don't have a bank relationship and you go to a local convenience store to cash your check, you're probably going to find that that mean person at that folding table is going to take a nice sizable piece out of that paycheck as a convenience fee. And when a policeman sets up a roadblock, the whole action that you planned around your tables to try to get the things you're supposed to do done has stopped and been diverted and detoured because there's road construction. So you're illegally here, you're working hard, you're holding down a job, an honest job. The police arrest you. In this game, you're not deported, but you have to go sit on a folding chair and you can no longer work to get the things you need to support your family. What happens when the offices that you need to visit are only open from 9 to 5, but you work during those hours, and so you can't complete what you need to do? Okay, I was doing great till the end of the first 15 minutes when I had done most of my things that I was supposed to do on my little list, but I forgot to buy groceries and my family went hungry. Okay, second 15 weeks, life threw so much at me. I had a kid that was in trouble at school, so I had to go to the school. I was supposed to go back to the employment table and get the little stub I needed to show up for a job. Didn't have time to do that because I had to use public transportation to get there. And the second week elapsed, and I had not fed my family again. So I know it's just pretend, but it hit me hard. I started getting a headache. It was ridiculous. It was just a game that I was playing. I saw my friends breezing around the tables at first, and then they too discovered different things that stopped them. They were suddenly struggling as roadblocks kept them from achieving very basic needs that they needed to provide for themselves and their families. Okay, so our church did not just invite the congregation, it invited policemen, invited nurses, doctors, judges, it invited lawyers. Did I mention policemen? The unpack session at the end was unlike any discussion I had ever had because we all had things to share that we had never thought about. We were all out there trying to do things for other people, but we had never really put ourselves in their circumstances. Did any of you guys see the movie The Florida Project? It starred William Dafoe a few years ago, and it featured long-term rental hotels. It was juried. It won some awards. Well, this was before that was filmed. We actually had some of the policemen who manned that route in Kissimmee in our participant group. And I'll never forget them mentioning that they had served on that road for years, but didn't fully understand what was happening and what the lives were of the people that they were serving. Some agencies started talking about how they were going to go to their bosses and talk about changing hours that they opened because they realized that people couldn't get to them. They weren't meeting the needs of the people that they served. So I had a lot to think about, and I realized I needed to change the way that I viewed missions myself. I needed to feel, and I needed to see, and I needed to better understand the missions I was involved in and how they really treated the people that I thought I was trying to help. I needed to have empathy and better listening skills. That isn't a natural trait of mine, and so I really needed to work on that. I had to listen so I could respond in a way that actually could help. I had to mission with people instead of to people. I do relate that back to our scripture today, as we have all had those parties in our homes where we were buzzing around trying to do the perfect event. And at the end of the evening, we sat back with our partner and we might have realized we missed things. We didn't have as much time talking to people, or we didn't just enjoy the event. We missed things that were happening. Well, the Pharisee surely probably threw a see-and-be-seen event. He was busy scorning the woman with the alabaster jar and talking about her and wondering why she was there. And he didn't understand that he and the woman both shared something. They both had very much a need for forgiveness. The woman probably didn't even think she was worthy of being there or God's grace, but she showed her great love and she gave what she had and she poured out her love for Jesus, who promptly gave her the gift of forgiveness. Well, it surely gave the Pharisee and the others in the room a mini cost of poverty experience, and they probably didn't like it very much. But it should have given them insight to some of the commonalities that they might have shared with that woman. About the same time that I played what I call the game that changed my mission life, our whole family was introduced to Zoe Empowers and met the incredible Rwandan woman who founded that ministry. Her name is Epiphany Mujawamana. She and some social worker friends had developed a model that was to tackling the complicated problem of extreme poverty and homelessness by Rwandan youth orphaned from the genocide. The orphanages were full, and the inpouring of tremendous amount of relief had actually made her people dependent upon handouts. Now, Epiphany believed that youth could actually do something. They could lead their own way out because her dad had died when she was little, and when she was 9, her mother was disabled, and she had successfully helped support her family, and she had gone on to be educated and have a college degree and become a social worker. But what she wanted to do was to strive not just to save the children from starvation so they could exist on the outskirts of life, but she wanted to give them stable and thriving lives of hope and opportunity. So how would she do that? Well, from her own personal experience, she understood that she and her staff needed to dive head first into what was going on in these kids' lives. They needed to understand where the kids were, what were the obstacles they faced, and what did they need to get their dreams realized? What would make them whole? She literally tells us she saw the image of God in these youth, and she wanted to develop a program that glorified God and was sustainable. She knew she needed to develop a holistic program because from her own experience, she knew that the tentacles of poverty, one or two tentacles could reach up and grab a child back just as they were achieving some good things. For if she was sick, she couldn't go to work to school. And if she was in school, she couldn't work in the field to support her family. So she knew her model had to simultaneously address all of these things. Zoe Empowers used the funds you send through your church to give roughly 9 inputs each year of a 3-year empowerment program, but it very much provides the inputs in different ways each year. And you would find that in years 2 and 3, the ways they do it are a bit more sophisticated because the kids are less traumatized and more ready to accept those inputs. So naturally, first, the inputs are we've got to figure out a way to make the kids safe and make them healthy. They're the basic needs to survive and what they need to subsist. So those would be to find out a way for them to have secure food, housing, to have good hygiene, access to health care, and also child's rights initiatives. They have to know who to go to be safe. But the children need to be skilled for long-term success, so you enter the next 3 inputs. The second set of inputs obviously get you the first inputs, but they also do the important thing of giving the kids hope and confidence that this isn't a temporary thing. They can actually use what they have learned to give them hope and dreams that this will continue forever. Those inputs are access to education, getting as many kids as we can back in formal education, business development through grants, financial fluency classes, and vocational training, particularly for those kids who may have been out of formal education for so long, it's just not practical for them to go back to school. But this isn't enough because Epiphany still listened to the kids, and she saw in the mess of their lives a tremendous need and desire to be connected to their community. So she calls that wrapping them in layers of community. This set of inputs make the kids be seen not just to each other, but to others in their empowerment group, in their community, and even to you and me. They are known by name and for something other than stealing from the fields. These inputs connect them to the resources that need to make them stay thriving. Let's face it, we all know people who helped us in our lives, that reached back and helped us in a time that we needed help. And these kids need to be connected to others as well. They need to be reunified with any members of their family that may have become isolated from, and they need the opportunity to be restored in their relationship to God. So many of the kids tell us that they did not think that God knew they existed, and he certainly couldn't have loved them because how would he have left them in such a vulnerable position? The Zoe Empowers program asks local churches in their village to immediately invite them into their churches, but they can never require them to join as a condition of receiving a bag of food, because how real would that be? The hope is that the youth will feel the love of God through the resources that this church sends, and also the love showed to them by Zoe Empowers staff and the community over the 3 years of the program. Now, you'll notice there are no buildings anywhere that is Zoe owns anywhere in the world. The kids stay in the community where they are found and are helped to find a safe place to live. Again, Epiphany listened and she heard the youth not just talk about needing food and a safe place to stay, but a huge desire, like all of us have, to be known to each other, to be a part of the community that they so long felt isolated from. The kids, therefore, are not just trained by a Joey staff member, but by members of the community. A local farmer is asked to teach them to make a kitchen garden and also helps them learn farming skills for income-producing projects. But you know what? That farmer knows them, often knows them by name, and they know someone who will look them in the eye. The person in the community who enforces laws will teach them child rights, including what a living wage should be. It certainly isn't 4 rotten potatoes for a day of work, and how to get land back that might have been stolen from their uncle when their parents died. Now they know that person, and that person knows them. Pretty soon, the youth embody a sense of belonging and community and confidence that transcends into society, into the broader society. Youth who were previously unknown or known in a hugely negative way have been reborn, so to speak. You know, charity is often not seen as a reciprocal relationship. Epiphany saw that it was vital to these kids to receive the inputs, to be empowered to make literally every decision they can along those 3 years on their own so they know how to stand on their own. They need to be successful. They need to share with others in their family, their community, and then they have to go to their greater community. We have seen youth adopting other orphans, paying children's school fees, helping widows. Literally, that child who previously had so little is reflecting the kingdom of God and being the child that God intended them to be all along. If you're willing to take a little closer look like I have, I think that you will feel that reciprocal relationship, and you may just learn something from these kids. I know I have. So let's look just for a second at the current group that First Sarasota is supporting. There's 25 different households, 87 kids, and because the kids make every decision that they can on their own, they named themselves the We Have Been Loved by God Empowerment Group. But get this, they're only 15 months into the 36-month empowerment program. And I wanted to share Praymore's story. He's a member of the empowerment group. He was 17 last year when he joined the group, had a younger brother and older sister. Okay, he was 10 years old when his parents divorced, subsequently remarried, and as often happens, abandoned the kids and left them to live with an elderly grandmother. She had no reliable source of income, so at 10 years old, he dropped out of school and was working in fields and was also known as his community as a mupenhai, or a beggar. Enter First Sarasota and the Zoe Empowers staff. Let's look at where he is today. So first he drew a dream chart. A dream chart is to us a piece of paper, a piece of cardboard with some pictures on it. But to him, it is a social work tool that helps him think about the sad things and the things that make him angry as a way to deal with tragedy and losses in life. But the right quadrants are what he loves and what his dreams are. And the bottom one is ways he might start to think about how he could get to those dreams. He was empowered to make his own decisions about the job he wanted to have and to orient his own life. And that is done in the first few weeks of joining the Zoe program. So what did he do? He took the initial $150 business grant that each family got, and he took financial training that was given to him in year 1, and he started a business. It was simple. He bought bread and donuts and resold them in the marketplace, but it gave him confidence, and he built on that. Because with the profits, he immediately bought 4 cooking pots. He bought cooking utensils, 100 plates, and started a catering equipment rental business. He saw that his community, because he begged at so many social events, there were weddings, there were funerals, church conferences, other events. Africa is a very social community-oriented place. Suddenly, the people who had called him beggar were seeing him in a totally different light. It didn't stop there. And remember, we're not even halfway through the 3 years. He bought goats and rabbits and chickens from his business profit. And goats and rabbits are very economical and they breed. And now he has a flock. He uses them for food and he also sells them. And in Zimbabwe, livestock is one of the most reliable ways to hedge against inflation. So he uses that to park his savings in his goats. He grows his own food in his kitchen garden. And with the communal help of his empowerment group, they assist in the fields and they are all raising together different crops that they can sell in the marketplace. That communal jobs they do together is not just to raise income, but it's because Epiphany knows they need to know each other. And what better way is by working on a project together. He and his siblings are now eating every day, at least once or twice. His siblings are all back in school and they help him with his businesses when they are not. He can start to think of employing others, which he tells them he's doing. The business profits have allowed him to fix up his grandmother's house. He has windows in the walls now. And with the help of his empowerment group, they are building a toilet outside his home, which is a huge improvement to his health and sanitation. You see, after 15 months, he has the basics in his life. He had some income. He has those around him already. He is starting to give back. You know, we call it a partnership because it is a beautiful, beautiful reciprocal relationship. We all give, your church is given, they receive, but they give it to themselves, their families, and their community. And then if we look, they're going to give it back to us. Please look closely at the model, zoeempowers.org, or come visit my table in the Narthex for some materials. We can also, better yet, set you up on a virtual mission trip, and your church can travel over Zoom and you can interact with these kids and talk to them and hear stories of their life. You can also go with Peggy Height and I, because on Friday we bought ourselves a ticket to Zimbabwe, and in April we will be sitting among the kids of your group and hearing their stories. I also believe that you will see the gifts that they give to us. You know, we get pretty hurt by a social media post or a small slight. These kids are finding ways to forgive unbelievable things that have happened in their life. I think that's something that they can share with us. Another gift is that they have unbelievable faith. God has found them in the midst of immense suffering, and they believe there is a God. Overwhelmingly, these kids are turning their lives to the Lord. They have faith like we have never seen because they are certain that there is God in their life. They have a model of empowerment that's working. And I think that our church has used it as inspiration to just tweak some of the local things we do, to rethink what we do. More than anything, I know you will see where you're participating in the mission of God. And if anything, what a reciprocal gift of knowing that. What a privilege it is to know that we are helping them in their lives. So I said I'd come back to the soccer ball. It was made by new youth who had just joined a Zoe Empowerment group in Rwanda. I was there last summer, and Epiphany gave each of us that were travelers one of these to bring home. She wanted us to remember the need to listen and to be creative. She knows every kid who comes into the program all around the world, because we're now in 9 African countries and 2 places in India. She knows everybody's hungry and everybody needs food. But from experience, she knows that hanging out of food is not enough. It is detrimental as they look to her in the future and not to themselves for their resources. She knows that absolutely any child can find dried banana leaves in a field or along the road because she sees them playing with soccer all the time with one of these. So what does she do? She buys these from kids that she sees have desperate, immediate needs for food right up front. She tells them she needs 5 balls, and she gets money into their hands, but in a healthy way, without a handout. How thoughtful is that? What a caring way to get needed inputs into a child's hand. She cared enough to dig deeper, think a little bit harder. Are the wheels turning in your head about something your family's involved in, something you need to rethink? Do you need a mission project for your family to look at? Because we have a winner right here in this game of life, Zoe Empowers. I encourage all of us to think what we're doing to change this world, and certainly remember Epiphany and her way of turning missions totally on its head, believing people can take charge of their own journey from extreme poverty to lives of hope and possibility. They're really the lives that God intended them to have. Almost 180,000 kids have graduated from the program that Epiphany Mujuwana created. Thanks to First Sarasota for changing the lives of almost 200 of those children, we believe forever. Here's to changing a whole lot more. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. We appreciate that. If you have questions, you can talk with Ann at the table in the narthex.